Welcome back. I have Abby here with me, and we have some beautiful spider plant babies that are growing like crazy off of our classroom mother plant. And so I bet you can guess that we're here for a biology lesson. And we're going to be talking more about the plant. And we've done a lot of talking about the plant so far this year. We started talking about the parts of the plant, and the parts of the plant were the root, the stem, the leaf, and the flower. And now we're going to talk about more about those parts. So what are these up here that we're seeing, Abby?
The leaves.
The leaves. And the leaves of a plant have a very important job. What do the leaves do?
They soak up the sun.
They soak up the sun, but what do they do? What's inside every leaf? Do you remember what we call it?
A food factory.
There's a food factory inside of each and every leaf. And you said it, they needed what? Sunlight? And water, sunlight and water to make the food for the plant. So we know where the sunlight comes from. The sunlight comes from the sun shining down. Where do plants get their roots? Where does the leaf get the water from to make the food?
The ground.
The ground, the water's in the ground? Okay, so last time we were talking about stems and the work of stems. And what's the work of the stem?
To push the water up.
Yeah, the stem acts like a water pump. That was one of the jobs or other functions of the stem. The stem works to hold the leaves up to the light, but also the stem transports food from the food factory to the plant and water from the roots to the leaf. So plants are really interesting how they have all the parts working together. And so we've talked about the leaf is where it makes the food. The stem transports food and water. Now we need to talk more about that special part that finds the water. And the special part that finds the water is the
roots.
Yes. So roots are really quite interesting. They're very smart. Roots go wherever the water is. They seek out the water and they reach for it. So you could say that a plant drinks with its feet and what does it do? A plant drinks with its feet and eats with its head. That's a funny way of thinking about it, because it's not really eating up here, right? It's making food. It drinks with its feet and it, I don't know. That's a weird one to think about. Okay, so I want to show you a picture I drew while thinking about these ideas. I'm going to set that plant right out of the way. Here's a chart I drew. This is a chart of a tree. And you can see that this tree has all the leaves up here. And here's its big stem. And then here's the roots. And you can see that these roots right here are reaching for the water underground. They're reaching for this water. In fact, these ones here are even trying to stretch around and reach for the water, because that's what roots are doing underground. They have a special sensitivity to finding water. Okay, so when we're looking at or thinking about this plant, we're going to think about the parts. And so I'm going to tip the camera down a little bit for a second here, because I want you to see this. Here is one of these little spider babies, and I want to take a look at the roots. So let's give it a pull out of here, and oh, it's really stuck in there. Something is holding this into the soil. I'm gonna have to reach down around it to get it to come out. I wonder what's holding it so tightly in there.
Oh, you got it.
Whoa, look at that.
Two big roots.
My hand's all muddy now. This is one of those plants in there, and you can see that there's soil all over it, and you actually got to see my hand being stuck to it, or my hand having to pull it out because it was stuck. This plant, this is called a spider plant. This plant grows, and maybe you've seen them before. They go under. Ooh, I wonder if we have some downstairs. I'll have to go down and see if we have a baby still on the tree, on the plant. This grows, the baby plants grow on shoots out in the air, and then you plant them, or they fall off and plant themselves in the wild, and they grow their roots into the ground and they grow. So the roots of this plant are really quite fantastic, and the roots of most plants, they hold the plant to the ground. They're holding the plant so it doesn't tip over. They're also holding the soil to the plant so the soil doesn't get away. It's a pretty cool thing to look at. Okay, I'm going to switch our view, and we're going to look at the parts of the root. Hang on just one second. Okay, I went and washed the mud off my hands so that we could do the next bit of this lesson. But while I was up, I grabbed the mother plant. So you can see it's a large one. The mother plant of our spider plant. And you can see, Abby's gonna hold it up. Here is a baby growing off of this offshoot. And here's another one over here. And so this plant reproduces by creating these offshoots and growing little babies, little baby plants. Yeah, that can be then fall off and replant themselves. I'm going to pull off one so we can look at it. I'll pull off this guy right here. So it's really cool if you have one of these or if you've seen one, then if you look down here at the bottom of it, right here, this is where it was attached to that offshoot. That is where the roots are going to grow. So you can just tuck this right down in the soil. We'll tuck it right in where we're working with this other one. Now my hands will be dirty again. You just tuck it right in there and then it grows like this. So that tiny little one that I just tucked in there, this one right here, that's what all these other ones looked like about 2 months ago.
They grow fast.
They grow fast. Okay, so now we're gonna switch our screen and we're gonna look at the parts of this root. Okay, and our paper got wet and we got some mud everywhere, but that's okay. So when we look at this plant has some parts that we're gonna look at. I'm just gonna mark what we already know. This is a leaf. And this plant is interesting. This plant has a stem that was underground. The leaves were above ground. This was the stem. So we identified the parts we already know. Okay, I'm going to push that up so we can look down here where we're focusing. So this kind of plant had more than one root, more than one main root. When it has one main root, it's called a taproot. This one has many roots. So this whole section right now is the root. Or roots. Okay, if you notice, there's these little tiny ones that the dirt is really sticking to right here. Those are called root hairs. Root hairs have the important job. Draw an arrow to this one over here. Root hairs have the very important job of absorbing the water. These tiny little little tiny roots, almost like little rootlets, absorb the water. I know. Down here at the very end of these big roots, right there is called the root tip. It's the tip of the root. The root extends down and the root tip is right here. And the root tip has a very important job. The root tip is what's looking for water. So this part of the root is reaching and stretching out, looking for water. And once it finds it, the root hairs that are right along the edges absorb it. And there's one more part that I'm not sure I'll be able to see on here, and it's right at the very tip of the root tip. And this is called the root cap. Like a baseball cap, root cap. The root cap has the job of protecting the root tip while it's doing that searching for water. There's all of these parts have such important jobs. Let's see if we can see it here. Some plants, you can really see that root cap well. This one, you can kind of see it's a slightly different color on the tip. I don't know how to make that. Maybe a Post-it note will give us a better, still not focusing very well. You can see the very tip is a little bit darker colored. Let me brush some more of the soil off and you can see some of those root hairs. And the root hairs are these ones right up in here, all these little ones seeking out the water from the soil and absorbing the water into the plant. And this part of the root is searching for the water, and this part protects it while it's doing that searching. So roots are very cool. They have some special parts that do some very special jobs. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed looking at the parts of roots. I think plants and their parts are fascinating. We grow a lot of plants here at home, and we start a lot of plants and do different things with them. And this is a plant. This is a pachyphytum that we had bought at Home Depot, probably on clearance. That's usually when we get them. And when the plant, some plants need very specific amounts of water. If we give them too much water, it's too much. Anyway, certain plants need different kinds of environments. Anyway, this plant was not healthy. It was doing terribly in the soil we had it in. And so it was dying and falling apart. So what I did is I pulled the leaves off. On certain succulents, you can do this. I pulled the leaves off and tucked them through this piece of plastic, and just so that the bottoms were touching the water. And what happened, oh, I can't get just one. They all of their roots have grown together, which is fine. If I'm planting them all together, I wasn't planning on it. Okay, so we got that plastic wrap off, and now let's see if we can pull some, get these apart. Here you can see that one of these pachyphytum, this was one, that's a little better. This was one leaf off of the pachyphytum that was dying. And so like I said, I tucked it through the hole in the plastic wrap, and it grew roots and a new pachyphytum plant. You can see that little baby plant growing there. So that's one way you can grow roots and look at roots, but also grow more plants. So that was one of them. Oh, when I pulled this one, its babies all fell off. This one, these guys here have their own root system now. They grew on the tip of this one, and now it's its own plant. Isn't that cool, Abby? Here's another little tiny plant. This one has weird dark roots compared to the other one. But the roots need the leaves to make the food. And so in that way, if you have enough of a leaf to support your roots, then your roots will regrow a plant to make more leaves, to grow more roots, to need more food, to need more leaves, and the cycle continues. So this is what the plant looked like when they were all together and it started to get sad. And that's why I picked off, like these are the leaves that I picked off and grew roots and a little baby. So it's pretty cool. I hope that you enjoyed that. And maybe you want to experiment with some plants at home, breaking off parts of them, sticking them in water and seeing if they grow roots. African violets do it this way. Coleus do it this way. A lot of plants you can just put in water and they'll grow roots and new plants. Okay, I can't wait to see your follow-up for function of the root, the job of the root, and the parts of the root. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.